Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. A couple of things of note that were interesting today around Heatland that were non-Durant related, although there's stuff to get into with that as well. Alec Burks has come out and was speaking to reporters today at Junior Heat Camp. Miami Heat, great job with the Junior Heat Camp. If anybody wants a great place to send their kids in the summer, shout out to the coach, Tony Fiorentino. Does a great job running that camp over there. Heat legends stop by, current Heat players stop by. I guess today, this week, was Alec Burks. But Alec, speaking to reporters today, heard a back and forth with him and Ira Winderman, boots on the ground. Basically solidified the only place that he wants to play is with the Miami Heat. He was pretty firm on it, didn't have any debate on it, but made it very clear that the place that he wants to play is in Miami. He said, when Ira asked about an imminent agreement, he said, "I hope so. Let's put that in the air. The only thing I'm looking for is to come back here. Everything else is what it is." And he says, "I like it here. I like the city. The city shows me a lot of love. I like the organization, everybody I work with. It's a great place for this stage of my career, and I like being here." So, yeah, it appears Alec Burks, who's going to be 34 next month, is very keen on returning to the Miami Heat. Going to be interesting. I mean, Alex Burks had some really, really good moments. An absolute, and I said this earlier in the year, and Spo kind of echoed the description. A pro's pro. Alec Burks is just a straight pro's pro. Every time it seemed like you could plug him in there, you could count on him to hit threes, even when he came in cold. And this is a little bit of a theme that I wanted to get into today, because I was going to talk about a draft prospect who is mocked today to the Miami Heat in ESPN's latest mock draft that dropped today. But the Heat, whatever happens with the KD thing, either way, the Miami Heat do need to find an infusion of three-point shooting. I mean, they have had, some great ability to find shooters out of nowhere over the span of their franchise, and especially basically, finding the Wayne Ellingtons of the world, the Duncan Robinsons of the world, the Max Struses of the world. And we may get into a year here where, I don't know what's going to happen with Duncan Robinson's contract. If it is going to be, I would say very likely, if the Heat do make a trade, he's going to be involved because it's expiring, and it could just be waived and be a cap elixir to some people because of the partial guarantee. And it just feels like, even though the Miami Heat have been posting Duncan Robinson on their social media working out, and he's a Heat lifer, legitimately Heat lifer, it did feel a little bit by the end of this that the Miami Heat were going about this, and it was like, yes, Duncan Robinson is always reliable, but does Eric Spoelstra look at him as a fixture in the rotation? He always seems like he's yo-yoing his spots. Six-man dunks can come and go. Sometimes he starts. It does feel like he opens up a lot of things. We know the comfortability and the stuff that he has with Bam, but then you look by the end of it and it's like, oh yeah, he's not playing, and then you're putting him in 40-point blowouts. So I'm just curious, does Duncan even want a fresh start from there? Is he looking, now that he's at the end of his deal, maybe somebody else looks at him and it's not that feeling of, we could always just play with his minutes because he's Duncan Robinson, he's hometown. Maybe a fresh start does him a better for his career. But also realizing, even if that's not the case, just the reality of his contract could get him moved. And then you ask yourself, where do the Heat go for three-point shooting, right? Davion Mitchell, not a traditional shooter. Terry Rozier's three-point shot fell off a cliff. Jaime Jaquez Jr., not a shooter. Haywood Highsmith, he's shown capabilities to be streaky, and you can rely on him from time to time, but I don't think anybody looks at Haywood and is like, hey, that's my knockdown guy. Like that's who's providing spacing for me. It's like he kind of, gets in wherever he can fit on the court. Andrew Wiggins, capability of being a shooter, but not necessarily known as like his thing. He kind of scores all over the place. Kel'el Ware we don't really know if he's a guy anybody respects defensively as a shooter. And Bam definitely took a tick up and put some more respect on his 3-point shot, but it's not his bread and butter. Pelle Larsson, not necessarily known as a shooter. So I'm you look up and down the roster and you're like, all right, well, where are the Heat going to find people who they can just tap into? Because it is still an important part in today's day and age. We talk about the Heat's offense and what a struggle it can be, but that's also a piece of it. It's like, all right, who on this team do you look at and you really respect? Jovic, from his part this year, was a decent shooter. Obviously missed a ton of games this year, only got to play 46 games, but I think is definitely taking strides and had some big-time performances. He took about he's 4.5 attempts this year. So, and shot there, like pretty respectable for Nico. So that's not nothing, but what if Nico's in the trade package and then you're losing another thing? So I say all this just to point out, like, hey, the return of Alec Burks is the point of Alec Burks going out there and return to the Heat. Yeah, I think it's necessary. What if there's a game Tyler's banged up? What if there's what if they lose Duncan Robinson? What if they lose Nikola Jovic? Yes, okay, in this case, you get Kevin Durant, who's obviously a great shooter. But I don't know. I just think it's one of those things that it's needed. And then I also look at the young guys. While Nico can shoot and has shown capabilities, I think you look at the rest of the guys. I mentioned Jaime, Kel'el, Pella. Keshad is like something they're working on with him. Josh Christopher, has shown a great ability to score. Isaiah Stevens is a facilitator. So I just think you look at all that, you're like, all right, who's the hot product? Even a couple of years ago, they had Cole Swider, who kind of bounced around and like, all right, he's going to be our guy who steps in here. So while the Heat can't go in a lot of bad directions and you're not really in a spot in the draft where like you can, dictate a lot of things because you're 20, you're on the bottom third of the draft and whatever falls to you kind of falls to you. It is one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, all right, if the Heat could find some shooting, that would definitely be beneficial to them. So I say all that to get to today's draft prospect, and that is Liam McNeely of UConn, 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. Originally was going to commit to Indiana, decommitted. I think there's some Kel'el Ware tie there a little bit. He's going to turn 20 in October. Just received a draft room invite. And while his percentages didn't knock your socks off this year, if you go look at it, good free throw shooter. UConn, after being dynastic the last couple of years, took a little bit of a step back. Comes there, hopes to win a national championship. That's why he decommits from the Hoosiers. And apparently and reportedly is having like really strong workouts and is impressing after what was thought of as like, I don't know where this kid's going to go in the draft. It's about in the Heat sweet spot. If you look at the mock drafts that are out there right now, Liam McNeely is around that spot. We mentioned ESPN has him going to 20. For the record, one other guy we talked about, Cedric Coward, they have going 21. I feel like I'd prefer Coward. The Ringer has him going 21 to Utah. So right there in that window. Bleacher Report has him going 28th. ESPN, I believe, overall has him as the 16th best prospect in this. The one that has him way up in the mock drafts that's just different from everybody else is, and they're higher on a lot of guys that are, that others not necessarily aren't, but Yahoo, their draft has him going 11th, and that's like the only place I see him going that high. I mean, they have him going as a fringe top 10 guy. A couple of comparisons that have overlap for him: Corey Kispert, Keegan Murray. I like Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray's a good player. Corey Kispert, intangibles. He's lit up the Heat before, I believe, on a couple of occasions for the Wizards. But that's a lot of the comparisons. And this was actually an interesting one. There's an article from a website called No Ceilings that actually compares him to Miami Heat legend Glenn Rice. Now, Glenn Rice was a monster player in college, different era. You stay at Ann Arbor, 4th overall. Like it's a different it's a different resume that he was bringing to the game, but it's also a different day and age that you're bringing to the game. But if you're talking about G Money, just like one of, probably the best talents that was with the Miami Heat before obviously getting traded for Alonzo Mourning. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing. That if you guys look up No Ceilings, Glenn Rice, Liam McNeely, you guys can go see the whole breakdown of it. I was like, oh, all right. Would you be interested in taking on the next Glenn Rice? And I just think that in this draft, I mean, the Heat, to me, can go a lot of directions that work because you can never have enough wing guys. You certainly you couldn't be mad if the Heat go with size. Having a facilitating point guard, even though that's a bit of a dying breed, certainly something that he can use as well. But shooting is definitely one of those things where Miami is, you're going to be looking around, and if there's no Duncan Robinson, and let's say somebody does woo Alec Burks, even though Alec Burks seems to have his mind made up, and I would gather he doesn't say that being that sure of it, I would gather that he doesn't say that unless he's absolutely sure that he wants to stay there. But who knows? I mean, other things can happen. I mean, maybe the Heat get to a point like, yeah, we don't like Alex Burks. We don't. But I will say everybody seemed to rave about Burks last year and what he brought to the table for the Heat. So it's just one of those things that's an interesting thing to hear about coming into this is just that, all right, where are we, where are the Heat going to be at in a post Duncan Robinson world, and how do they juice that up a little bit? Like, where do they go? And certainly getting somebody like McNeely, who, again, percentages aren't anything to write home about, but all scouts say, like, this dude can light it up from downtown, still young player. So, you don't crush him for maybe not as impressive of a year stepping up in the level. Should he have gone back here? I mean, that's another debate for another day. He's not. He's going to the draft, and I think based on the workouts and whatnot, it seems like more people are starting to warm up to him. Will he fall all the way to 20? I mean, look, for most mocks, it seems like he's going to be around that area, but things can break in different ways. You see a lot of stuff with this Ace Bailey where he's tanking his draft status, doesn't want to necessarily be uncertain. So that can mess up a board and send guys down a couple of ways, or send guys up a little bit and take them out of position. So you got to take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. But with the Heat, gonna possibly need some infusion of young shooting. Definitely one of those names that could be intriguing for Miami come June 25th.